We continue our summaries of the October country with three more pieces. Right here, we've got a story called Touched with Fire. This one took me back to Fahrenheit 451 for obvious reasons. There was a lot of symbolism of fire, heat, mention of dragons and stuff. In this case, though, the spontaneously combustible element is a woman named Mrs. Shrike. It's a heck of a name. I know that word probably means something. I think there was something called the Shrike in Hyperion by Dan Simmons. By the way, I've tried reading a couple of Dan Simmons books, and I'm sure they're really, really good, but for some reason they don't work for me on audio. I've had a couple of books like that. Like the Warhammer books were that way too. Like I would just need to read them in print. They don't always translate well unless you're seeing the words on the page. There was also, what was that series? The one where um, Mortal Engines, the one where like the cities are moving around. Like there was some weird zombie Terminator thing called the Shrike. So whatever the word means in real life, like it's obviously something creepy and terrifying. So perfect for a Bradbury story. But there's this lady named Mrs. Shrike, and just everybody hates her. She's shrill and shrieking, very Shrike-like. Just an absolute pain in the neck to everybody who knows her. And there are these two guys. What are their names? I know that this wasn't their name, but like my brain kept correcting it to Hobbs and Shaw. I think it was Fox and Shaw. They take it upon themselves to kind of protect this woman, just because they know that she's eventually going to piss somebody off so bad that they kill her. And they've got this fixation on this idea that murders happen when it's 92 degrees outside, or like 92 degrees is the magic number. So they kind of follow Mrs. Shrike around, and they try to diffuse situations around her when the temperature gets too high, just to prevent a murder. But they themselves then get so um, like annoyed by being with her and like being around her all the time that like one of them goes to kill her. um, you know that saying, like people should be able to fight monsters without becoming monsters. You also hear stats thrown around about like the number of police officers who get arrested for domestic violence and stuff. It's the concept that proximity to evil can infect you with evil. It's got to be really, really hard to do jobs like that. Like imagine being the guy who works at a tech company, and your job is to make sure that all of the naked pictures and crime scene photos get deleted off the platform every time somebody tries to post something naughty to social media or to Google or to YouTube. Like what if your job was to just be drowning in that crap all the time to prevent others from seeing it? Like it would mess you up. And that's kind of what happens here. Um, Hobbs and Shaw end up like just saying, "Okay, well, screw it, we're done with this job," and like even though they wanted to stop it, they realize that they themselves are susceptible to it. I don't think this is necessarily like a horror element, but again, it's an exploration of a dark element and human psychology and the connection there too. If you get too close to evil or negativity or shrieky shrikeness, it can wear you down. Even if your specific job, your self-appointed position is to fight against it, you got to insulate yourself against that. But you remember that you are only human. After this, there's a story called The Small Assassin. And this one is a slow burn. It's kind of like The Skeleton, where at first a character becomes fixated on something, and you think that the character is weird, but then as the events of the story play out and their obsession becomes more grating and more hyper focused, you realize there might be something to this. And then by the end, it's like, oh, holy crap. Again, like there's that component of if you fixate on something, maybe in this case, like it's not that it's made manifest, but that it's just like a character is proven right. In this case, there's a married couple named David and Alice. Alice gives birth to a baby boy, and like she's convinced right out of the gate that the baby is trying to kill her. And her husband's like, "What? No, like you're just we'd call it postpartum now. Like you're just having, uh, an emotional response to this thing. It's going to be fine." Well, Then the wife gets sick and she blames the baby because like the baby cried all night keeping her up and that weakened her immune system and she got pneumonia. And then David's like, okay, well, whatever. Like, it's just you're gonna get sick when you're tired. You're tired because the baby's gonna cry. Babies are gonna cry. Like, this doesn't mean the baby is trying to kill you. And then David starts cottoning on and thinking like maybe the baby did try to kill uh, my wife because he was walking around at night and he steps on a bottle at the top of the stairs and almost wipes out. And then later, his his wife like ends up stepping on something at the top of the stairs that the baby left out. And, like she trips and breaks her neck. And David's like, "Oh, holy crap! Like the baby is trying to kill us. What's going on here?" And then after a few days, David turns up dead, and a doctor drops by to see how they're doing. And David died because there was a gas leak in the house. Like somebody opened up a gas valve, and David suffocated as a result of that. And the doctor who knew about the mania that Alice and David had was like, "Yep, nope, the baby definitely did this." And so he goes on the hunt to take out the evil baby. So again, like a twist on something familiar and presented in such a way that you would find like highly disturbing. Like, who's going to go to war with a baby? But the baby is heavily implied to have been the one doing this. It's psychological and it's moral. It's a transgression against morality and against the highest cause of humanity. That is the propagation and the protection of innocent life to preserve and prepare the next generation. But if you're going to go to war with a baby because the baby's going to war with you, you're then taking humanity's most sacred calling and turning it into a dark thing. As far as the ending goes, he relies much more heavily on implications and the reader's own extractions from the text versus telling you outright what exactly is going on. Did this doctor find the baby and give it the KILL? That's for the reader to decide. The third story on this video is called The Crowd, and this one kind of confused me just because I wasn't clear on what he was trying to say here. It just seemed like it was kind of a commentary on the sort of people that look around whenever there's like a car accident. They stop and they slow down and they want to see the accident. The main character is a guy named Spallner. He's in a terrible car accident. He survives, and like the before the police can even show up, like this crowd of people will get there and just be looky loos. They'll be so obsessed with seeing death and suffering and car crashes and whatever that they just beat him there. Spallner thinks this is weird. He goes to the hospital, and on his way home, like he sees more car accidents, and there's always a crowd. And like after he sees a couple of car accidents, he realizes it's always the same crowd, and they're just rushing there to see. Like my initial guess was that these were people that had died in car accidents, and Bradbury was doing like this weird spirit thing of like, oh, we're the ghosts of car accident victims, and like we're always there to welcome the next guy along, and you just happen to survive or whatever. Like, no, it wasn't that. I think he was trying to do like a commentary on people who are obsessed with suffering and death and pain, because this wasn't really like a supernatural or a paranormal thing. Like this was just people who are weird and crappy about this sort of thing. Um, Spallner gets into another accident on his way home from the hospital from the accident he got into, and these people show up to kill him. They're like, hey, like we want to actually see you die this time or something. And he's like, no, I'll join you. I'll go around with you guys and we'll watch car accidents together. I was like, well, what the heck is this? Like, not the strongest story in this collection. Much as I love Bray Bradbury, I am going to criticize this one for just being lesser than what he's shown he is capable of. One of the reasons that I don't like horror is because that it's so creatively juvenile in that it's trying to shock you with things that are just vulgar, and that's not the same as being like artistically excellent. It's like it's like putting nudity in a movie. Like you'll get a response out of the audience, but it doesn't take any actual creativity or artistic originality to do that. You're just showing people boobs. People like boobs. People are biologically programmed to like boobs, right? Like that's not, it's not art, it's just boobs. All right, and don't get me wrong, boobs are great, but I'm trying to enjoy art here. And this is more of just like, oh, here's people who like watching car accidents, and we'll kill you unless you want to be like us. Like, I didn't think this was as strong as other pieces that Bradbury wrote in this collection. All right, that's all for now. Drive safe. See you out there. Thank you for watching that. To help the channel, check out my books on Amazon. Buy one, read it, tell me what you think. For October, I recommend Sleepless Hollow, a fantastic sci-fi romp with guns, ghosts, and gonzo action sequences. You can also subscribe to my Substack, where I do more detailed book reviews and longer-running projects, some of which is paywalled. Drive safe. See you out there.